Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'm Carl Dambacker. I'm the co-founder of Gold Rush News. On behalf of our sponsors, Blue Mountain Mineral, Nerdo Boy, TC Facts, we'd like to welcome you. Let's start off with the flag salute, and then we'll get right into it, all right? Please join me with Carl leading the flag. Salute. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Again, I'm Carl Dambacker. I'd like to welcome you to Save Our Source, Spend on Storage, our second in the series of SOS. Save Our Source is based on the need of recognizing what we have and how we need to preserve that. Spend on Storage is what we're going to be confronting on the November 4th election. This is probably one of the most important campaign periods in my lifetime, in ours, because if we don't make the right decisions November 4th, Tuolumne County needs to have strong leadership. So what I'd like to do now is look at the panelists. I'm going to start off with introducing Carl Rutherford. He is our supervisor of the 5th District. Melinda Fleming, second panelist. She's the executive director of TUD. Tom Trott like a horse, general manager, Twain Harte Community Services. Great. Thank you for being here, everybody. Give yourself a big hand, everybody, for making it down here. I appreciate it. So now I'd like to turn this over to, and then we have our timer, Jerry. Jerry, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Jerry's going to be running the lights. You need to pay attention to your lights. As a candidate, you need to pay attention to the time limits that Carl's going to go over with you. I think that's about it. We're going to try and stay on schedule if we could, please. And that's it. Carl?
Sure. Thank you, Carl. There's an echo in here. First of all, I think you all ought to be commended in coming out. The candidates for throwing their name in the hat. It's not easy to run for office, public office, and it's certainly it's a challenge to serve. And you all ought to be very proud of yourselves, and we ought to be very thankful for that. Also, for all the people that are here as observers, you're to be commended as well. Civic interest is very important to government, and understanding the candidates, understanding the issues, and then voting intelligently is very important to the governmental process. So thank you all for being here. Before I get into the forum rules, I'd like to read an email from one of the candidates, Delbert Rotelli. He sent this earlier today. He says, "I will be unable to attend candidates night due to a slight blood condition that requires temporary treatment. Anyone who has a question about TUD may call me at home, and I have his phone number if anybody wants it. I'll read it now, but you can get it from me later. 532-5617. That's 532-5617. I will be out Monday campaigning door to door. Again, I am sorry I could not meet with you tonight. Hope to hear from you. Thank you, Delbert." So we're sorry that Delbert couldn't be here. We do have 10 candidates here, 5 for each of the races. There are 2 races for TUD board. One is a race for a 2-year seat, and the other is a race for 2 4-year seats. So there are 3 seats up for election, 1 2-year seat and 1 4-year seat. Our first 5 candidates are competing for the 2-year seat. Our last 5 candidates are competing for the 2 4-year seats, and we will do them in that order. Forum rules. The forum will be run in accordance with the following rules. The presentation will be conducted in a professional and polite manner. Deviation from this rule could result in a candidate being removed from the forum. This would be at the discretion of the debate moderator. 2, each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute opening statement. You will individually get introduced. You'll go to the podium. You'll be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to answer each question. We will rotate who asks the questions with each candidate. Each candidate will get 3 questions. The first question will come from the panelists. The second question will come from the audience, and we will have a roving mic. And the third question will come from our fishbowl, which are questions that have been given to the organizers of the event And again, you will get 2 minutes to answer each question. At the end, after we have asked questions of all the candidates, in the reverse order by race, that is, by the competitive race for the seats, but in the reverse order, you will be given 2 minutes to close. So the first person that comes up to get interviewed will be the last person that gets to make their closing comments, okay? And each person will get 2 minutes for a closing statement at the end. Timing will be with a 3-light system: green light, yellow for 30 seconds remaining, and red when the time is up. When you see the red light, please end that sentence, and that's the end of your comments, your answers. Candidates will not be allowed to attack or impugn other candidates. The purpose of this forum is to explore the ideas each candidate has in becoming a board member and how they plan to affect operations of TUD. Do any of the candidates have any questions about the rules of engagement? Okay, then we'll start. I am the first questioner, and my first... Part.
Jerry, do you have anything you need to say?
The green light will go on when you're into a 1 minute. At a minute and a half, the yellow light will also signify you have 30 seconds left. In exactly 2 minutes, the red light goes on and you will stop. Or we'll stand up and clap like crazy.
Okay, okay. So we have a little audience participation going there. Okay, anybody before we get started? Okay.
Now we're going to listen to our 4-year term candidates. The first one, David Axelrod. If you'll start with your 2-minute platform statement, please.
I'd be happy to, thank you. I'm David L. Axelrod. I'm running for TUD board, 4-year term. And first I want to say hello. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. And I want to thank the Gold Rush News for putting this all together. I'm always amazed how many public-spirited people we have in Tuolumne County who pay attention to these local races. And it's appropriate to do so because there are some important issues facing TUD and facing the county. My platform in running for this seat is to conserve our resources, keep rates low, and try to live within our means. And the details of that, I'm sure I'll have some more chance to talk about, but in case I forget to do so, I should say right now, before any decisions should be made, we should have hearings, we should listen to public input, and we should study the issues before jumping to conclusions, because I believe that the resolution is always better after given some thought. I'm for transparency in water. You don't want your water to be muddy, and transparency in government. You don't want your government to be muddy. So we would, while I'm on the board, we'll adhere to the open public meetings rule, agendize all issues, and actually listen to what people have to say. My background is as a landscaper, park ranger for 12 years in the East Bay, and firefighter, sworn firefighter. That gave me the experience to know about nature and to study watershed issues. I've also taught at the Columbia College in the Natural Resources Department, and now I practice law, and one of my most proudest moments was in this chamber representing a group of community supporters of Columbia Historic Park, saving the elm trees of Columbia, working with the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Okay. For your first question, in the most recent issue of the TUD newsletter, General Manager Seja said, water supply is an investment that we can no longer ignore. How would you address the need for water supply investment?
Well, there's two sides to that coin. One is the water supply, and the other is the investment. The water supply we need. The investment requires financing. And so, first off, I would try to live within our means and exercise existing revenues. We do have revenue sources. We have myself as one, and I'll declare that. I have no conflicts of interest, except I am a ratepayer. Maybe that's why I want to keep rates low. But I also can identify with other ratepayers, some of them on fixed income, and it's difficult to pay. That's why I would reward conservation. We have the issue of what do you do about declining revenues because of conservation. We should have a sliding scale. For those who conserve, they should get the benefit of their conservation, and then we have more resource to deal with. We can also, to finish answering your question, we can also seek grants. I don't think we've been persistent and aggressive enough in seeking grants that might be out there, or even creating some funding through our political leaders, because we need some help up here. This is not the wealthiest area in the world, and there's limited resources. We're faced with drought conditions. This drought hopefully will end soon, but there's no guarantee of that, and the general trend is towards less precipitation, less runoff, smaller snowpack, and we're going to have to, therefore, plan to conserve what we do have. And we can also increase our supplies through greater storage, better maintenance of the ditch system and of the reservoirs, and also use of groundwater and incorporating that into our system.
Thank you. The next question is from the audience. Anyone in the audience?
Here you go.
Yes, let's say that we have one more winter of drought, similar to last winter. As a TUD board member, what are you going to suggest that TUD's immediate actions are going to be for supplying water for all the ratepayers next year?
Well, as I've prefaced my answer by saying that's a hypothetical question, but it's not an outlandish possibility given what happened the last season. And so far this season, we haven't had much precipitation. There's no guarantee of rain, especially under the climate change situation that we have in the world today. That being the case, we should plan for all contingencies. And the further diminution of the water supply will mean further requirement for further conservation. We'll have to take a very close and sharp eye at any further development in the county. We may not be able to support even what would normally be considered sustainable and reasonable growth if the water isn't here. And I think that the market will, to some extent, take care of that, because if the water isn't available, then more use and more residential and agricultural users are likely to decline. On the other hand, we have our existing base of agricultural and residential users that need water. And so what we need to do is maintain the current system, improve the infrastructure, and attempt to gain some more water rights than what we have. And that might require some greater investment. As I say, my priority is to keep rates low, but in an emergency, we'll do what is necessary to keep ourselves alive and get the necessary water that we need to maintain our lifestyle while conserving drastically what we use, and also maintaining the infrastructure so that there isn't wastage and there's less leakage in the pipes and in the ditches.
Thank you. Question, oh, I'm sorry. We're still taking more from the audience.
Mr. Axelrod, you were a former park ranger and firefighter, so you know very well that an increase, cutting down of more trees would really add to the water source here in our community. What could you do to encourage the Forest Service to be more forthcoming with their cutting down trees for more water storage?
Thank you for that question. I'm glad you asked that question, because it came up earlier and I wasn't able to address it at a previous forum. And I'll say this with all due respect: when I have a question that is prefaced by the comment, "You know very well that," I'm going to listen very carefully to the words that come after that and see if that's true. And unfortunately, in this case, I don't agree with the premise. I thought it was absurd to say that trees deplete or diminish the watershed. Just the opposite is true. And I wrote a thesis on watershed rehabilitation, which ended up being published by the National Park Service and UC Press, in which I said and followed literature in the field in explaining how we can upgrade watersheds by restoring vegetation. Now, there may be, I just read recently that there's a salvage cut going to happen in the rimfire area. That's good, because those are dead trees anyway. But in general, vegetation and forests are what maintain and establish our watershed. And certainly, yes, they use water, but they keep water from just running off if we clear cut. And I would remind those who live in the Sonora area, maybe you can recall when that Sunrise Hills development went in, they clear cut all the oaks, thinking that they're going to build a lot of houses. And that was a foolhardy approach, because what happened was the very next rainy season, we had flooding in Sonora, and the mud was flowing. I could see it from my backyard. Mud was flowing out of that hill in streams and rivers, and it's the only time I've ever seen Washington Street and the back street there by Stage 3 fill up with water. You couldn't even cross. It was like a flash flood, and that's what's caused by clear cutting.
Okay, since we took two from the audience, we're not going to take one from the fishbowl. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, our next candidate, again for the four-year terms, is Patrick Congdon. And Patrick, when you're comfortable, you can do your 2-minute intro.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to expand on 3 of the issues that I brought up and are contained within the ballot as it relates to me. And those 3 are public involvement, groundwater, and agricultural production. As far as the public goes, one of the reasons why I'm running is based on a number of comments that I have received over the last couple of years related to the public's view of TUD and of the issue of not being able to be present or being able to have much of a say when it comes to issues that affect everybody. So issues like setting rate scales, like making decisions on issues that impact the staff or impact ratepayers related to the staff, those issues they feel are not being addressed openly with the public. And so what I would like to see is far more public involvement. One of the things that I would like to see is a standing committee, a citizens advisory committee made up of various ratepayers that would help TUD in the decision-making process. We talked a little bit about groundwater earlier. Although there are many people that feel that groundwater isn't an issue in this county right now, what I worry about is in relation to what happened years ago when we started looking at water rights. And I think that we have to stay ahead of the game. We have to be aware of how groundwater legislation will impact us here, and we can't just sit back and wait for it to come, because it is going to come eventually. And the last thing is I want to be able to provide enough water to small and large-scale agricultural producers in the county, because as we go forward, locally grown foods, especially in severe drought periods, are going to be the future for communities like ours.
Okay, thank you very much. You get to pick a number 1 or 2.
2.
Okay. So the question number 2 is, please tell the audience how you feel or what you feel a good strategic vision for TUD might be, how that might relate to things like the blueprint study and the general plan in the county.
I think that one of the first things that needs to happen is everybody needs to come to the table, the TUD board, the county, representatives of the county, and all those that would be involved in creating a vision for the county and for creating a plan for water conveyance throughout the county as well. As it relates to the general plan, as I understand it right now, the county oversees essentially the health quality of the water. So in other words, they have to ensure that the water is is clean and safe for those people that reside within Tuolumne County. But there's also the issues of what rights and abilities the county may have to secure water in the future. It's also that they will need to be a part of a program to go out and obtain special funding, whether it be grant funding or other types of funding for future water conveyance. The vision for me, or at least how I see TUD, is it has to be one of storage capacity, has to be one of conservation, it has to be one of looking for alternative water sources, and by that I mean working with the county, working with local water jurisdictions, working with folks in Oakdale and Modesto and Merced to look at securing additional water for the county and for the people that reside here. And the last part of that is that for TUD, they're going to have to be very active in Sacramento. And it's just not the politics here in this county, it is spending time in Sacramento to get to know those people that are on the water committees that could impact this community.
Okay, Patrick, thank you very much. We'll go to the audience for a question.
One question, here we go.
My question goes to, I had a couple different questions. I think the one I'll ask you is how do you plan on, if you get elected to this board, of bringing our balance sheet together? It seems to be a practice in government of setting wages so that they're commensurate with what other wages are paid in other counties. And as a businessman myself, if I ran my business by trying to do that, it wouldn't work. I would be out of business. I mean, we have to pay what we can afford, not what other counties pay. And so, bringing employee wages under control and the benefits go along with those. What's your long-term strategy for that?
What I understand will also come out in the Union Democrat are responses to a question that was asked of the candidates that deals with that. What I am proposing to do is to go back through the salaries and pension for all employees at TUD, current, and also what's proposed for future openings at TUD, and evaluate those. You're absolutely right. Comparables are nice, but if you're comparing TUD employees to San Francisco water employees because Hetch Hetchy is close by, if you're comparing them to other valley water districts or water departments, I don't think you can accurately do that. I've been in government, or I worked in government for over 34 years. I've seen where that's been looked upon as the way to do comparables. It doesn't work. You have to really do the comparables within your community, as close to your community as you can. Calaveras County, Stanislaus County. And I think you're really going to have to look at that from the standpoint of we definitely have to evaluate what those current and future rates are. Now, as I understand it, one of the issues right now, City of San Jose, they're trying to go back and look at pensions that have already been guaranteed. There was a lower court ruling that said that you couldn't because that was a contractual obligation or agreement, and you really can't go there, but the City of San Jose is pursuing that through alternative legal actions. The other thing is I'm going to advocate somewhat of a privatization of TUD, and I think there are areas, I don't have all the details right now, but I've looked at the budget, I've looked at staffing, and I think you can. A lot of people don't agree with privatization. I've been involved in it in government. It can work, and I think it's something that absolutely needs to be looked at for TUD.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. And the fishbowl question. I know there's some people out there that are interested in your answer to this. Should landlords be responsible for their tenants' water bills?
My response to that at the last gathering we had was that I think that TUD should not involve itself in landlord and tenant relations. I think that if the landlord, if the owner of that property wants to pay the TUD bill, then they should be able to. If they want to work out some agreement with their tenant, that potentially could mean that they get a tenant in there that they feel may be a better provide a better service to that landlord in the sense that that person may take better care of that property if there's some type of structure between the landlord and the tenant. So to answer the question, I don't think TUD or TUD should be involved in making decisions on a tenant-landlord relationship. I think that's the landlord's responsibility, and it should be their right to do whatever they feel is necessary.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, next up for the four-year candidates is Mr. Jim Grinnell. And if you just start with your 2-minute opening statement, that would be wonderful.
Good evening. I hope you've seen my homemade, hand-painted red, white, and blue signs, Grinnell TUD, and I hope you feel that I'm a conservative guy. I'm not soliciting or accepting any campaign money, nada. I'm a veteran. I'm a former public utility inspection engineer, management consultant doing cost reduction, profit improvement, and cash management studies. My education is a bachelor's in engineering, a master's degree in industrial administration, a master's in health administration, and I studied toward a PhD in finance. I was elected to the board in 2012 with a platform of no jumbo rate increases. Upon taking office, I wanted to accomplish these things: more business-like, a business, balanced budget, monthly financial statements, buy local where possible to keep money in our community, finish the treated water optimization plan, update the 2008 strategic plan, eliminate credit cards for directors, and have local legal counsel. Unfortunately, my ankle was broken May 28th, and I resigned because for 3 months I couldn't walk. In my opinion, TUD needs a real business plan, not dreams. I think that we've overspent by $1 million or more every year for the last 7 years. There's been repairs that I think should have been made that haven't been made. And we've got approximately $17 million in unfunded post-employment benefits, for $6 million for pension and $11 million for health. I think the people deserve to know the truth, and I'm ready to resume the work of being the people's representative. File for reconsideration of the Maloney's acre-feet of water, complete the treated water optimization plan, do a delivered cost of services study, wholesale, retail, treated water. Thank you.
Oh, hold on. A couple more questions.
Right.
Thank you. So the first question is the same one that I've been giving to all the candidates, is in your opinion, what is the board's role in planning for long-term water supply reliability, and how do you see yourself in the process of accomplishing that?
Well, one of the things I did when I was a board member is I went to the Aqua meeting up in Sacramento. I talked to Felicia Marcus and other people. You learn a lot, you meet a lot, and I think the key to the future for us is to get the right general manager. I think the right general manager will understand what TUD's needs are far better than any board member could understand them, but just get it right, do what needs to be done for the community. I personally think that we should go after the new Maloney's, the water that was guaranteed with. There's a recent court decision, August the 1st of this year. That's less than 70 days ago. Court decision affects Tuolumne County, I think. I've talked to an attorney about it. It's a very significant case. It came out of the Federal Circuit Court in Washington, D.C. on August the 1st.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the audience?
Sure, I have one. We used to seed the clouds. Was that feasible? It seemed like we didn't have droughts back in those days, and we did a lot of cloud seeding. And everywhere I look nowadays, a bunch of clouds. And is that feasible to seed the clouds?
Just so everybody could hear that, he's asking if it's feasible to do cloud seeding.
My My question is, the reason I don't know that is, you're basically talking about cloud seeding over federal land, and I don't know that that's permissible. I think cloud seeding in, let's say in Iowa, you know, where you got a big farm patch of corn, that's one thing, but now you're talking about doing it on basically other people's land, and I just don't know.
Thank you. And then the last, and I've mistakenly referred to it as a fishbowl, but this is actually questions from the Gold Rush News readers. And this question is, what are your qualifications to help run a multi-million-dollar organization?
Well, when I was consulting, one of the things I did was I helped Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles find a director of nursing. I worked with the Teamsters up in Portland, Oregon. I worked with the Teamsters in Los Angeles to reroute all the trucks for Southern Pacific and for East Texas Motor Freight. Those are all multi-billion-dollar corporations. Pacific Motor Trucking was a subsidiary of Southern Pacific at the time. It's not hard. I used to wear a Brooks Brothers suit with, a three-piece vest and all that. And I rode around with the truck drivers, and just get with it. Find it out. Do what's necessary. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Candidate number 9, David Harris, it's your turn. You have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hello. My name is David Harris. I was raised the son of a dairyman. And if there's anybody in the world that knows the importance of water, it's a dairyman. You need water for your crops. You need water for your cleanup. You need water for your cows. And today, a cow in the valley that's producing 100, 150 pounds of milk is going to drink 30, 40 gallons of fresh water. Water is essential to our life. So I know the importance of water just from that aspect of it. I'm running to see if I can help solve our problems with water. I see our problems as being storage. We receive 25,000 acre feet from PG&E on a yearly basis. We use 18,000 feet. We reset the clock every December 31st. What little water we have in Lyons is going to carry us over, and we better get some rains. That's what happened this past year. No rains in January. That's why all of a sudden we started running short. Thank God we had the rains in February, or we would have been in desperate need. I've done, in my construction business, we've done large projects, we've done water projects, we built concrete water tanks for the Forest Service, metal water tanks for municipalities. So I understand storage, I understand distribution systems. I just want to get this solved. I think there's a lot of ways we can do it. We can partner with South San Joaquin, Turlock Irrigation, Modesto Irrigation, Tridam. We got leakage in the ditch system, and that's going to help recharge the groundwater. We need to get a credit for that instead of considering it a loss. Thank you.
Thank you. Your first question?
Yes, ma'am.
In the annual financial report from this June for TUD, auditors remark that the decision made by the board to leave vacant the district engineer position, and with the upcoming retirement of Mr. Sheza, the current general manager, there will be a significant impact on the organizational efficiency of TUD. Looking forward at potential projects, the prospect of continued drought, can TUD afford to lose any efficiency?
Absolutely not. With us losing Tom, there's a brain drain going on over there, a real serious one. And the new board's biggest decision the next couple of years for sure is going to be to pick a general manager. The person's got to come in and hit it hard. And he's going to be involved along with the board in and laying the groundwork for the next 20, 30 years. This is a really crucial time period. I hope this year was just a wake-up call and we go back to some normal rains so we get a little reset. But if we don't, we're going to have to look hard and deep at all avenues to better serve the community and keep from dewatering the county. So, hiring just a general manager doesn't stop there. We're going to have to hire some brain power behind that, and so a lot of tough decisions to be made in the coming months.
Question from the audience?
In addition to, have you always been in the construction business? I was interested in your statement about you've been involved in the construction business and building storage, water storage units. So tell us more about your background.
I got my general contractor's license in 1976, and hopefully I don't look that old. But we've done concrete water storage for Forest Service at Dry Meadows in the distribution system for the firefighters there. We've done distribution systems for commercial projects in the valley, which was basically fire flow and domestic, backflows, C900 8 and 10-inch lines. We did all the fire flow for Tony Benitez after he purchased the old town as standard and brought fire flow down from the ponds up on the hill there that SBI has. We've also manufactured steel tanks, bead blasted them, lining them with approved coatings at the time, epoxy paints. We've done leases to the state of California for CHPs, DMVs. And in my spare time, we started up a little company called Conifer Communications, which is providing broadband to areas that are not near, fiber like Comcast or AT&T, and we're serving people now with anywhere from 3 to 40 megabytes of speed. So hopefully that answers.
Thank you. The question from the fishbowl, unless there was any other audience, no? Okay. And you brought this up earlier. Explain your position on partnering with downstream water districts.
Turlock Irrigation and Modesto Irrigation through Lake Don Pedro are going through FERC relicensing, and the feds are all over them for what they're doing in general. So they're looking for things to offset that. Exactly how we can help them, I don't know. But all we have to do is look at the situation and see how we can. We can take some credit for putting groundwater recharge from our ditches. That's certainly going to help Oakdale Irrigation. There's just, we have a couple of partners in the county that can help us immensely, and that's the tribes. It's in their best interest to help the population in general, and the population in general to help the tribes. If we're going dry, they're going dry. So I think it's just a matter of sitting down and talking to people, looking at the problem, and coming to a resolution of what's the obvious answer. And there's an obvious answer. It's just a matter of putting our heads together. And in a closing statement, I'll prove that point.
Thank you very much.
That's it?
Really?
Yeah. Well, you'll get 2 minutes later. But if you like standing up there. Okay, our final candidate for the 4-year term seats is Mr. Ron Ringen. And Ron, if you'll just proceed on up there and give us your 2-minute opener when you're comfortable.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Ringen. With 11 candidates for just 3 seats on the TUD board, there has been an overabundance of talk just recently about what should or should not be done at or by TUD to improve our county's water issues. Some of the suggestions you've heard make sense, and some have been, well, let's just say over the top. Talk's cheap, especially when provided at the 11th hour before an election. Anyone who knows me or has observed me over the past several years at TUD meetings knows that I don't just talk. I'm a man about taking action, real action. I didn't just attend all those TUD board and committee meetings over the past several years and take up space in a chair. I participated. Many of the suggestions, comments, and insights that I voiced during those many meetings I attended over the years were actually acted on and became policy or influenced the final decision that was at hand. That is what working with others and communicating is all about. That is true commitment and care about the community that I have such a love for. Don't take my word for it. Ask the TUD staff. Look at the past recordings on the TUD Granicus system, or read through the past minutes of all the various meetings. There you will see Ron Ringen advocating for the TUD ratepayer and Tuolumne County community time and time again. This community cannot have a robust economy, provide any kind of development for future growth, or sustain any kind of healthy agriculture activity without adequate water, period. That's why I'm asking for your vote tonight to continue the process to identify and implement the solutions to our county's water woes. Vote for real action, not talk. Ringen's right for TUD. Thank you.
Okay, Ron, thank you very much. By process of elimination, you got question number 1, which
Okay.
is, what I'd like you to do is explain what you think TUD needs to be doing now and in the very near future to position themselves to best compete for the funding that will become available should Proposition 1 pass and the water bond become a reality starting January 1st.
Well, that's really a loaded question. There's a whole myriad of things that TUD needs to be doing. Some of them are in process, and some of them are yet to get into process. First of all, what we need to be doing is trying to grasp at the low-hanging fruit. Let's do everything that is within our reach that we can afford to do now. And those would be, of course, like the dredging out of Phoenix Lake, the Phoenix Lake restoration, which is hopefully going to be coming through for the most part with grants through the IRWINT program. And then also we should be planning for and getting to the reservoir up behind Sierra Pines Golf Course as soon as possible, because without that we have no safety water source if the flume or the main ditch goes down. And then we need to look at slowing the water down coming through Tuolumne County. We should be able to sequester it in various places along the ditch system like they used to do in the past years. And then, of course, we need to be looking for partners, senior rights water partners that we can negotiate deals with in order to purchase the water that we need. It's not going to happen overnight. This is really going to be a long, drawn-out process, but we need to just keep plugging along and get after it.
Audience.
Mr. Reagan, I have 2 questions, and the first one is, I'm not sure if it has been fixed, but I do know that the water, no, shoot. I forgot the name of it. I'll go to the second question since it went out of my brain. As a ratepayer that's been having TUD water for 24 years, it is not very potable a lot of the year. What can you do about that?
Well, first of all, a board director, that's not their job. But running making sure that you give guidance to the utility so that there is good potable water is their job. So, first of all, I'm surprised that you're having that problem, and if so, then I would say that a call to the office would be in order, and I know for a fact that there will be an employee out there pretty darn quick checking it out, and you will get an answer really quick. That's one thing that in all the time that I spent reviewing, visiting all of the facilities that I could of TUD, and I have pictures to prove it, and also meeting and talking with every employee at TUD to learn what their contribution is to the utility and to this community. I know for a fact that they take quality water seriously, very seriously. That is their whole thing when it comes to their making a livelihood there at the utility. That is a real major thing with them. So if you're experiencing a problem, you need to give them a call, and I'm sure that you will get an adequate answer to your question.
Okay, did we have another public? We'll go with the public question then.
When you talk about sequestering water along the ditch so that it doesn't just run off, could you elaborate on that? Like what does that look like?
Well, in the past, there was many, and I'm talking back around the turn of the century and earlier, and maybe even a little bit after the turn of the century, and that would be 1900. They knew that the water was, finite, and it was only going to be basically running for a certain amount of time during the year. And it would start to get, at the end of the year, if they didn't have enough in whatever reservoir they had at that time, which I think was only Pinecrest until maybe the 40s or 50s, I can't remember exactly. But whatever the case is, they used to have ponds and various other areas that they could capture that water and hold it for use for as the season went into late summer and fall. And I think that really our ag business up here is really getting beat up, because every time there's a water shortage, they are the first ones that get cut off. And actually, they were the first ones that used to use the water from the ditches. They were the first actual users. I mean, sure, it was for gold mining and all that, but agriculture has always been one of the prime users of it. So I think, too, maybe that should be a discussion between the board as to how the ag folks can be helped to sequester that water on their property also, so that maybe they're not constantly in this bind, especially the tree growers. I mean, how do you follow an orchard? You do it once.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ron, thank you very much. We're going to go to the candidates' closing statements. As I said in the opening, the candidates will make their closing statements, again, by the competitive race, and they'll do it in the reverse order that they took questions. So I'll turn it over to Melinda. Now we're going to shift gears. We're going to go to the candidates for the 4-year term. First candidate, Ron Ringen. 2 minutes, Ron.
Okay, if I wake up on November 5th and find out I've been elected as a director on the TUD board, it may sound silly, but my first thought will probably be that I will be only one of 5 votes when making the tough decisions at the TUD board meetings. The 4 other board members will very likely have differing viewpoints, ideas, and possibly even agendas. I serve currently as the vice chairman on the Tuolumne County Planning Committee, and I'm a member of the Board of Supervisors Planning Committee. And I've served on many other boards and groups, almost always in one of the leadership positions. Those that have served with me can attest that I always listen intently, do my utmost to understand completely what the point is that the other person is trying to make. And finally, I will, if needed, make suggestions or provide ideas on how to reach a common ground point if I'm not in agreement with the original thought or proposal. That is called collaboration and innovation, and believe me, with the extent of issues facing TUD in the county when it comes to water, that is what will be needed by the truckload. I have those abilities to reach out for ideas and middle ground. I know and have been involved with certain state leaders involving water, state water interest groups, but certainly our county government and staff people, as well as all of the staff and employees at TUD. And that is what is going to take to get TUD in the county out of these water woes. It will be working together to find the solutions and then collaborating to bring them to fruition. I have proved time and time again that I can and will do that. I haven't been attending all of the TUD and county meetings all these years on my time and my dime to see us fail. I've done my homework, I understand the problems, I'm experienced, and I will be able to hit the road running on November 5th. Vote for Ron Ringen. Remember, Ringen's right for TUD. Thank you.
And our next candidate, David Harris. Also 2 minutes.
Thank you to Carl, Gold Rush News, and the sponsors for this. Anybody that knows me knows that after a good 8-hour day, I have a coffee break, and then I go back for another 4 to 8 hours. I put in the time every day, and I'll put in the time to solve this problem. At the last candidates night that the chamber put on, I heard time and time again about thinking outside the box. Nobody knows how to think outside the box better than an innovator and an inventor. They look at problems, they solve those problems, and they suggest reasons to how to solve those problems, and the patent office can judge it and issue a patent or not. I have 9 U.S. patents. I have over 30 foreign patents. And just in case anybody want to see, there's a U.S. patent. If you've never seen one, if you've never seen a Korean patent, there it is. And if you've never seen a Japanese patent issued, it comes in a little book, not a little red book of Mao, but a little brown book, and that's what they say inside. I think it'd be a challenge to read it, but anyway, my patents cover construction materials, laser use, financial instruments, and data formation for the use of the user. You most likely are using one of our patents today, probably in the financial patents that we have applied for. Going forward, there's something here to be solved. That's a lack of water, and that's primarily due to storage. Then it's just a matter of how we're going to pay for it. If Prop 1 fails, there will be another one down the line real soon. Needed 2.5 minutes. Sorry.
Thank you, David. Next candidate. Next candidate, Jim Grinnell. Also 2 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm just an easygoing guy that wants things right. When I got on the TUD board, I found there was a lot of, let's say, talk and opposition to high connection fees, particularly over on Parrots Ferry Road and 49. And so I read the government code. The government code, specifically section 66013, defines what a capacity fee is and defines what a connection fee is. And consequently, I filed a Freedom of Information Act with TUD and found that for the last 10 years, they hadn't been doing a capacity fee. And a capacity fee requires segregation of the funds, and a capacity fee requires a public report to the people. Among other things that I've done that I think are significant is I'm on the Finance Committee for Area 12, Agency for Aging. I've been on the Commission on Aging. I co-started the senior fair, and I'm very strong on remembering that 30% of our population are seniors, and they really can't afford high water rates. So we need to be creative, get our fiscal house, financial house in order, and I'd sure like the opportunity to go back on the board and try to do that for you. Thank you very much.
And Patrick Congdon, again, 2 minutes.
I spent 34 years in paid public service, 20 years as a volunteer fire captain. And the reason why I bring that up is because the position of board director requires commitment. It requires commitment to a lot of time. It isn't just attending a board meeting, receiving a packet on that day and going through that during the meeting. It takes a lot of time prior to that meeting to prep for that meeting and to understand what's going to be discussed and potentially what's going to be voted on. And I think I have that commitment. I've served on a number of advisory committees and tactical or technical committees. I was on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District Advisory Committee and technical committees with the Santa Clara Valley Water District. And with those committees, we worked on various issues related to water conveyance. They have a canal system that is also used for recreation, and also have issues related to the mitigation for a lot of the projects that they're undertaking. And I worked quite extensively with them on those projects. I believe an advisory committee that represents all ratepayers within the TUD boundaries is critical. As you can see, in the Phoenix Lake project, it's not just dredging the reservoir. There's going to be issues related to developing best management practices related to erosion. There's going to be issues related to recreation and wildlife. As we pursue grants, either through the state or the federal government, it's just not going to be to increase storage or to increase water conveyance. There will be other requirements asked of TUD to meet those grant obligations. And I think it's going to make a big difference in having all these groups that represent everyone in this county come together to make the decisions that will be served for the use of various water conveyances. Thank you.
And our final closing comments are from David Axelrod. Also 2 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. I'm David Axelrod, running for TUD, of course, as everyone is. And I do agree with a lot of what's being said. If I spoke on every topic and issue that's come up tonight and is very important, my head would probably explode, so I will touch on some of the more important points that I have time for. I'd like to say one thing, though, that in case I forget to say anything, I do have flyers on the back table. They look something like this, all different colors, including pink and blue, but it's also good to go green because the preservation of watershed, as I said before, is actually enhanced by the fact that we have trees, we have forests, we have brush, and we have ground cover, and that's what we should try to maintain in our watershed. Yes, some thinning would also be conducive to a better watershed and a healthier watershed. But that's the difference between California and, say, Iran, Iraq, or Afghanistan, countries where the trees have been cut down centuries, maybe thousands of years ago, and the watershed is depleted, and there's less water, and those are desolate areas. We don't want to go that route. We need to keep California green and golden. I'd like to give my best wishes to Delbert Rotelli, who couldn't be here tonight, and I hope he's feeling better soon. And a little bit about my background. I have some experience serving on boards. I was on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and I was the chair of the Food Vendors Committee. While I was, and after I was a student at the University of California at Berkeley. After I got my science degree in natural resources, I went up, did graduate work at Humboldt State, and then came back to UC Berkeley for my law degree. And so have plenty of experience in these areas. Thank you very much for listening, and good luck to everybody.
Thank you, David. Okay, in closing, again, I would like to commend, and I think on behalf of everybody here and many that aren't here, thank the candidates for their commitment to run for public office. That's not a decision that anybody should, and I don't think does, take lightly. It's a tremendous responsibility that they're stepping up to. I would also like to thank the candidates for their excellent discipline on the time management during the debate or the event. It wasn't really a debate. For those of us in the audience, Connie, Randy, and myself who have been through these, that's not always the case, so it's very much appreciated. And then I would like to thank the public that came here tonight, that showed the interest in this race. I would invite you to take what you've heard back to your friends and let them know what these gentlemen stand for. I think they would appreciate it, and I think the whole county would benefit. And lastly, I'll just make an editorial, and it's a general editorial. I personally believe, as most of you know, I've taken a pretty strong interest in water issues in this county. I personally believe that this race is the most important race for any number of reasons that have been addressed up here that we've had in recent years. And I think the measure of that is the number of candidates that are interested in the water future in this county and have come out to run for office. So again, thanks to the candidates, thanks for you coming, and I'll turn it back over to Carl Dambecker.
Real quick, I know we're going to make it on time, but I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. Be sure to study your notes and cast your vote on November the 4th. You have some little program things you hopefully made notes on. And importantly, very importantly, I'd like to thank our panelists, our sponsors, which are Blue Mountain Mineral, Neuro Boy, TC Facts, and Gold Rush News. But if you have any comments, please make them on our Facebook page, Gold Rush News and radio.com. I thank you for joining us, and November the 4th is an incredible opportunity for you to cast a vote for Tuolumne County. Thank you for joining us. Good night.